Hey everybody, Chris Parry here from Equity Guru. Today we're talking to a resource company CEO that I've talked about a little bit over the last week or two. His name is Balbir Johal. Bal, how are you, man?
Hey, Chris, great.
I'll give you a little bit of credit. You know, sometimes when I write profiles on executives and I pull out stuff that makes them different, not everybody responds well. You've responded really well to my characterization of you as being somewhat of a nut bar, but a good nut bar. Would that be something that you think of yourself?
Well, eccentric. I had friends of mine that we used to hang out at university, and we were the anti-cool crowd.
Okay.
You know, anti-correct, anti-this. I find in life that there's a lot of lemmings. You know what they say about economists? You can line them up side by side, and they will still never come to a conclusion if they're going over a cliff or whatever, right? It's just
Right.
like you don't want to follow the herd. If you follow the herd, you're not going to succeed. That's my point of view, and I've done that all my life, and I've had some pretty good success.
Yeah, I kind of go along with that. I think that conventional wisdom gets you only halfway. It doesn't really get you to the front. And a lot of the guys over the years that have found something that nobody expected were the guys that were crazy enough to go looking in a place where everybody assumed was not the place.
Yeah, Chris, I like to say, I'm crazy smart. My background, I grew up what they say is the other side of the tracks, the east side. And, you learned how to fight there before to think, because if you thought you're dead. So the bottom line is this. But then I went to the west side, went to the University of British Columbia, and I try to round myself out, proper manners. So I feel that what I have is street smarts and school smarts. And that's what you really need to do well in this world.
So let me take it back to the beginning for you, the origin story. What got you into mining in the first place?
Well, look, I started in 1984, 85,
Okay.
and this is how it started. I just graduated from law school, and it was really bad time. 1983, that's when gold went up to $800. In 1980, Afghanistan and all that. People should look back at that. Bottom line is interest rates were 20%. Unemployment was huge. There was a big recession in British Columbia. And me and my buddy, we graduated from law school, said, piss on this. Let's start our own law practice, Joel and Ganji. We did that, and my dear friend Eleanor just retired from law. But here's the thing. During that, I met some people in the junior mining business, and I made a pitch. I said, look, why don't you hire me as an in-house lawyer for your company? You know how they got rid of ATM machines? I says, get rid of all the, ordinary crap and get these lawyers to do the heavy lifting, and I'll do the lighter work, and you'll save money. So I got my job that way. I got in with a guy called Bob Dickinson, the Hunter Dickinson Group, and started with a company called Trader Resource Corp. I worked as in-house counsel. Then I said, man, I really love this business. And, I'm a securities lawyer. Law is great. It's a lot of work, but I want to make lots of money for myself and my investors. So I said, I'm going to start my own companies. And with a fellow called Greg Amor, who was a CA at Cooper's Library, we partnered together and started the first company called Cinnabar Resources. And since then, I put together about 20 plus companies from scratch, which my most recent one is Brascan Resources. And, I've had some luck along the way. I was involved in a company called Signature Resources that eventually became Uranium One. Actually, my vehicle went from 4 cents to $17 a share. Nice. Another company, Boise Bay Resources, which was a capital pool that I started with a guy called Jim McDonald, who today is director of the same company, but it's called Alamos Gold. Alamos Gold has a $5 billion market cap today. Jim is still a director of the company, but we started the CPC that eventually became that. So I'd say those two companies are where my shareholders made lots. And I've known people from those companies that made millions. Okay. That's just a fact, because the companies went up to a $5 billion valuation,
right,
from $1.5 million valuation. So I've had two where the valuation is less than $1 million, and they've gone to 5 billion. Now, I didn't do that alone, but I brought in the right people, made the right connections. Frank Giustra was involved, who's a billionaire. I've done deals with Ross Beatty, who's a billionaire. So I've been very lucky over 45 years to deal with some really good top quality people. Like Viva Gold, on and on and on. So people have come and gone, but I've been here for 40, 45 years, and I've gone through all the cycles. And as I can say, not much changes in the subjective element of greed, fear, all these emotions. And you got to understand those and understand what to do with it. And I do. And nothing has changed. If you can show me something's changed about fear and greed or fear and loathing in Las Vegas, please tell me.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's changed pretty recently, and that is for a long time, the conventional wisdom in mining was stick to your netting. If you're a gold company, you're a gold company. You don't mess around with lithium or critical metals or aggregates. You've come along at a time when maybe that thinking has changed a little bit. And here's how we know that. We put out a Twitter poll, which admittedly is unscientific, small sample size last week. But of all the people that follow me that answered that poll, 45% said they prefer a resource company to be spread across multiple metals.
Oh, wow.
Which for me is a real change, right? I think it's probably to do with the younger audience coming along and understanding that markets ebb and flow. And if you're only in on one chip at the roulette wheel, your chances are low that you're going to get a win.
Well, yeah, look at venture capital. How do these guys make money? They put money into 10 deals.
Right.
And one, like an Uber, succeeds. They make huge bundles of money. And a lot of the other ones can be duds or break even. I call venture capitalists vulture capitalists, because by the time your company gets to the end line, you've got like 2% left in your company. Okay. Right. So they just rape and pillage you. That's why I like the public markets when I'm involved in, because you get to keep a bigger chunk. Your shareholders get a fairer shake. Okay. A lot of that Silicon Valley crowd, they're a bunch of bullshitters as far as I'm concerned, right?
Agreed.
Con artists, shit like that. So you look at a Silicon Valley bank. I mean, this has been going on for 40, 50 years. And it's very incestuous. The same people in that circle pumping each other up, right? And
then the moment things go shitty, they're the first ones out there yelling that it's all going to come collapsing down so they can get on the short.
Yeah. So I went to Harvard, an executive course, and studied private equity and venture capital. And I came away not liking venture capital. And, private equity is fine. Okay, that's good because you need that, particularly in bad times. But the public markets is where the ordinary guy gets a chance. Okay, and that's what I care about. The ordinary young person, they want to make a bit more. I know when I was young, I became a millionaire at 28. Okay, after getting out of university in 2 years. And that was a shock to me, money, how do I deal with my friends, this and that. But you know what? I like my friends that I've known for 40 years. If you have a few true friends, that's great. And I got to tell you that, that's what I want to do. Do something life-changing, for others, because we're all stuck and we're riding on and walking on a treadmill. We're rats in a cage, whatever you want to call the, analogy or whatever. But the bottom line, you got to get off that. You've got to get slightly higher. And what I want to do with my company is have all these opportunities and one or two work out. Okay. So we're into critical minerals, vanadium, titanium, magnetite, scandium, phosphorus in Quebec. We're into lithium in a big way in Quebec. And right now, if you look at PMET, their stock is going way up. Stocks in that camp in Quebec are taking off. We're also in Brazil and Minas Gerais in lithium as well, next to a company valued at $5.7 billion called Sigma Lithium. So we're in two world-class camps for lithium, REE in Ontario, and we have a fantastic gold project called the Allegra Gold Project that we're spinning out into a company that's going to list. So Brascan shareholders of record will have tons of shares in this thing, which we want to focus on critical metals, but there's value in this gold play, and gold is looking good. So that's another play that could happen. A company called BRAS Lithium did that last year, and it's a company called ISM, which became their spin out, and that went right up. So this spin out, making a purely gold focused company, and we've got more gold assets. That is what's going to really create value in the gold side. But we have all the critical minerals and the battery minerals, the lithium, the vanadium, the VTM, and that's where we're focused on in Brascan Resources. Now, all these things are not going to work out, but each one, I believe, is $1 billion opportunity. So if one works out, you know, just like how venture capitalists do it, that's my style. And I think
I'm going to play devil's advocate on that one with you, Val,
sure.
and I know you're up for it. But all right, so I like the fact that if someone wants you to stick to your knitting on the gold front, they're going to get the gold stock, which will do just that. If someone else wants to be covering the board, they've got everything else plus the gold stock. So that's good. You're covering both sides. You're also anchored in the developing world, anchored in Canada. I like that too. And 2 properties in Quebec. You know, they like giving out mining permits in Quebec. If you they give you one with your croissant for your morning breakfast. But realistically, one, how many of those can you actually work and progress? And 2, if you know about gold, what do you know about lithium and critical metals?
Okay, let me tell you the Balbir difference.
Okay, TM.
What makes our company, my company, different?
Yeah.
Now, one thing is, there's a lot of people going to these caps and spending millions and zillions of dollars on moose pasture.
Sure.
I don't do that. I have very good geologists, mining people that take me and say, hey, this is really highly prospective. And we're able to get those more directly, and even if it's indirectly, for a much lower cost. You know, I can show you tons of examples. The other thing is lithium. You know, we all know that more lithium is needed, more copper is needed, more nickel is needed. Let's go on and on and on. I mean, it's the case. And the younger generations are the ones that are most attuned and focused to making a difference on this planet. And those are the kind of people I really want to reach out to, like EQUITY.GURU. Okay. So, you know, you have these different things. Now, you can say, well, where's the money coming from to do all these things? Well, first of all, I've made very easy deals from the beginning so that we don't lose these deals for a number of years. Okay. Some are outright staked, some are, you know, purchased, acquired, option, however you want to do it. Yep. Now, we're raising $700,000 at 3.5 cents. That offering's going good. We expect it to be complete in June. And the bottom line is this: with that 700,000 less expenses, we have specific use of those proceeds. Number one, NAII, our partner in Newfoundland, is raising about $1 million, and they're making good progress on that. Well, we own 25%, and so we only have to put up $250. Okay, so that gets that $1 million, 1,000 meter maiden drill program where tons of mineralization shows high grades and great grades of VAT. Okay, the vanadium's there, the titanium. If you go to a company called Strategic Resources, you'll see the value of something like vanadium. I mean, these are all critical minerals. Now it's a multi-metallic. So we're doing that. We are going to do a program either in Quebec with the Quebec lead properties or our Brazil lead properties, and that's being set up right now. So money's going to be used for that. We have enough runway to get there, so there's not a lot of obligations right now. Now, really important is the Allegra Gold Project, which is going to be spun out. We did $300,000 worth of work last year. We really improved the potential to find a multi-million ounce gold deposit. So some of the money from this proceedings are going to go there to further delineate these targets. And that property, which is amazing, is going to be spun out into a company. We're looking at different names like Goldmark Resources, focused on gold. and now it's going to list on the CSE. So a lot of that is moving. The gold team can go there, and the guys who really know it. So it's kind of funny, but we're going to get over the hump in the next 6 months, and we're going to find one or two things that are going to do really, really well. Okay.
So if I can characterize it in a real simple way, you're not going to blow the bank going to one place or the other. You're spreading your bets a little bit. You're progressing just a little to see what you can see before you knuckle down. But because of the way you've done your deals, you don't have a pressing need to go raising a bunch of money or you lose the properties.
Yeah, no.
So if it takes a little while, it takes a little while. That's fine.
We've done deals where we have these properties for years. So it isn't like doing some deal and you're desperate to raise money. Right. In fact, we are looking at some gold projects that could actually throw off cash flow for gold. I mean, it's the kind of things we're looking at. Okay. There's a company called Brascan in the past, in the 1970s. They started there in Brazil, and they became the largest conglomerate in the world in the 80s by the Bronfmans. And the bottom line is, you know, they're a mentor of mine, just, you know, looking at an influencer. And what they did is they combined cash flow with big plays. They used to own John Labatt's, they used to own brewing. They owned everything in Canada, right? There's a book called Grab the Brass Ring, you know? It's a good book to read because I've read it, and it gives me a lot of inspiration. Now, here's the thing. They didn't start off with a lot of money. Well, they had money. You know, they had private equity. But, you know, we've raised a few $1 million. We can raise money. The point is that getting cash flow, even a small amount, with multi-million ounce potential or billion-dollar type deposit potential is really good, because, you know, junior companies, they end up dying the moment they don't have any money or the market's bad. So I have a plan that we've been executing, and we're going to continue to execute. And I know that we're getting closer and closer to really making some big moves and results, which will really appreciate, I believe, the value of the company. $1.5 million valuation. I mean, give me a break. These five, any one of these are worth more than $1.5 million. Okay.
I was going to get to that. So last year, your share price was a lot higher than it is now, and you had a lot less going on. So, you know, if you take last year as being valid, market cap wise, $1.5 million market cap is kind of crazy.
Absolutely. We've been high as $14 million market cap. But look, the company came out October in 2021. We went into 22. We were able to raise $2.4 million in a terrible market in January. But get this, here's our good luck. It got even worse in 2020. Yeah, you've heard of the Ukraine war. You've heard of all the tech shit going down, everything. So we got banged. If you look at a lot of juniors that were up there, they're trading at 3 cents. Okay, and I could point you to 100 companies.
Yeah, I see it all day, every day. Everyone we look at.
But the question is, who's got the perseverance? Who's got the resilience?
Well, and who's de-risked things, right? So, like, if the only expenses you have right now are a couple of guys crawling over your rocks and you working out of your kitchen, that's pretty low risk, you know. If you're going out there and you're raising money at 3.5 cents, it didn't take a whole lot to get that to 4.5, especially when you're at a $1.5 million valuation. So I understand that you're only raising what you really need to at this price, but to me, it's a real opportunity to be buying in there at that lower price, at that lower valuation, plus getting warrants on the top. Like, you know, what's your risk? Your risk is, you know, at some point, Balbir goes and gets himself injured in a skydiving accident, and you lose your investment. The other side of it is, if you have just 1 or 2 good news releases at a $1.5 million valuation, I mean, shit, you can buy a downtown dry cleaner for $1.1 million.
Yeah, Chris, this is the thing. When things all went down last year, we never gave up corporately. You know, we kept fighting, and we've got all these assets for good prices. You know, when a stock's at 3.5 cents, the fear is going to go down to 0.
Right.
Right. That is the fear. Well, there's no fear here. Okay. We're just doing things, and we're doing them. And you know what? I really believe in backing my companies. And whenever a company, you know, I don't let companies go off the board. Okay. I've had a lot of success. I keep companies afloat and keep working to turn it around.
And you got 4 decades of history behind you doing that.
Yes,
Let
absolutely.
me ask you a complicated question, or at least it can be
Go
complicated.
ahead. Go ahead.
So if you had 10 million bucks in Brascan and no properties, and somebody, let's call him Balbir Johal, came along and said, I got these properties that I'm ready to sell you. How much would you pay for the properties that you've got? Realistically, take your stock promoter hat off. Like, if you were looking at them and thought, okay, well, I've got the money, here's where I stop. Here's what I'd pay for these properties.
Are you saying someone is coming to me with properties they want $10 million for?
No, I'm saying you've got cash in your hand. Someone comes to you with the properties that Brascan has right now. What would you realistically pay for them before you'd have to think about it?
Okay. Well, look, we're shooting for hundreds of millions of dollars of valuation. I mean, that's how our shareholders are going to make a 10, 20 times return.
But everybody's shooting for that.
Okay.
But let's say, like, it's going to take a little while to move things along. You've got your little your investment here. You've got these properties that are all near good properties that are further along. There's a lot of closeology happening here.
Right.
You're in several sectors that are all, occasionally taking their runs. What would you say these properties would be worth to you in that situation? 2 million, 5 million?
I'd say today, and I'm saying this today, our company, I believe, is worth around $20 million.
That's a big call, Bal.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you, and we've been
on the strength of the properties that you've got.
Well, look, we've got really, really good properties. They just haven't been revealed yet. The work is being done, right?
Right.
I mean, we're one drill hole program away from showing a significant resource in Newfoundland. That's what I'm trying to say. Even this gold play, our director, Dr. Bern Klein, who's a professor at UBC, met with Ken Johnson, who optioned us a property. He owns the largest diamond company in South America. They met in Dubai. And Bernie loves this gold property. It's in a gold streak. He met with Ken. You look up Ken Johnson and look at our website. He's been at this 37 years, raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Huge. He has 300 people working for him. Well, they work with us. Okay. So the bottom line is, what I'm saying is, what people don't realize is we're just not that far off, a drill program.
So your theory here is not necessarily that all of these properties are going to be, churning along in a year's time. In fact, probably won't be, but that one of them is likely to be in a sweet spot based on proximity to where there's already action happening, the low valuation that you've got in there on, and basically all you need to do is a little bit of inspection work to get them to the point where other people believe.
Yeah, and look, I picked 20 million as a number. It's all fictitious, as you know. It's as you asking me a hypothetical. Usually politicians say I don't answer speculative questions. Okay, I did it for you, Chris.
That's all I ask.
But I believe it. Okay, I believe that we are gonna. The value is there. It's part art. It's part science. Okay. Well, I'm the art and I have the science. Okay. And we're going to make this work. Okay. I believe this is going to happen. And if you come along with me, we're all going to do well. Okay. We can ask all these questions, but at the end of the day, we need answers. They say at university, just ask a lot of questions. That's what university is about. But when you get in the real world, Chris, it's about answers. It's about doing things. And I gave you an answer. I mean, Win High is a $15 million market cap. The market valued is a $15 million. We've acquired a lot more and done a lot more since then, my friend.
Sure.
And so,
well, look, valuation is always based on what someone will pay for it, right? So, you're a couple of good news releases and that valuation becomes rational. A couple of bad ones and it doesn't. But my thinking is, and this is the reason why I put a little money into your outing here, is the downside. What's this going to go from 1.5 million to 1.2 million? Like, even if you just sold off everything, you're going to get at least that money back. Yeah. And so where's the risk? The risk is maybe I lose my investment. The upside is maybe my investment goes up 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times if you do even just a little good work, even
Well,
just a little.
yeah, Chris, this is what I want to say. Usually, sometimes I tell people to buy my, shares, right? But I don't tell them when to sell, even when they ask me. And I'll tell you why. That's a very difficult decision. Because let's say Brascan is at 4 cents today, right? And someone's got the shares they bought, maybe at 2, 3, I don't know. And they go to me, pal, I'm up 100% on my money. What do I do? Do I sell? Now, how do I win on that? I go, yeah, sell it all. Make your 100%. But here's the thing. They do that, then it goes to 40 cents.
Well, you've had that experience of your CPCs going to 4 billion.
Yeah, exactly. So then they come back to me and say, why the hell did you tell me to sell? What did you tell me to sell for? Okay, but then if I say, hey, man, load up, buy as much as you can, okay? Chase it to 10 cents. And then it goes back down to 2 cents because it's never going to go off the board, I'll tell you that much. And then they're going to be saying, you got me into this and you've ruined my life, right? I says, well,
right.
why don't you grow up, maybe be, be someone who, makes your own decisions.
It's a big boy's game.
By default. It's a big boy game, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm a libertarian, right? I do what I want to do, just like Hunter S. Thompson. If I want to shoot myself, fine. If I want to hang out with the Hells Angels, fine. I've hung out with a few Hells Angels in my time at some local water.
Every guy on the markets who's been around for longer than 2 years has, I think.
Yeah. But here's the difference.
Whether they know it or not.
I don't do business with these guys. Frank Sinatra once said, he was being interviewed. He says, Frank, all these mobsters, they show up at your shows, this and that. What are you doing involved with the mafia? He says, listen, I'm an entertainer. Okay, they come to watch my show, but I'll give you a piece of advice. I wouldn't do business with the mafia. Frank Sinatra said that. Okay, that's a true quote.
Yeah, the terms are always bad.
Yeah, the terms are bad. You get nothing, we get everything, and
you
fuck with us, we kill you. We kill you. Right. So look, I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of different type of people, a lot of different psychologies. Here's the thing: being authentic and keep working hard and building slowly, and then hoping. In our business, we're not looking to make 3% on our money. We're looking at a life-changing event.
High risk, high reward.
And that's how I think. And I've done it several times, and I've lost several times, as they say, but I'm still here at 66. I believe in the younger generations. I believe in the ones that want to change this world for good. And that means cleaning up this fucking planet with all the crap our generations have spewed on it.
Well, let's talk about that just quickly, because critical metals is something that we hear about a lot. But you know what also comes with critical metals is people who use the terminology without actually understanding like how they're actually going to get to it or what it's useful for, if there's a market for it. There's a lot of graphite mines out there that never became mines, right? So what is it about your projects that makes you think that as a critical metals play, Brascan is good?
Well, let me tell you this. I see myself as a leader, okay? I want to bring the best people, the best leadership, and the best workers all together, sharing fairly. Now, here's the thing. We have the people. We know, like for graphite, for example, it has to be at 99.9% and all that. So we know all the numbers, okay? We know all that because, I'm not an expert in it. But there's an old
you've been around the block for a while.
Well, here's the deal. I want people a lot smarter than me, doing stuff, right? And I am probably, not the smartest guy in the room, if you know what I mean, right? So,
well, you're a securities lawyer. There's got to be some brains kicking around up there.
Well, there's been a lot of brain cells that have gone. But apparently, you have millions and millions of brain cells, so you can lose a few. You can lose a few million brain cells. You can't lose a few $1 million. But anyways, bottom line is I have the people that are there that know their stuff.
Right.
Okay? I have the people that know how to administrate, how to get things done in government. We're in Brazil. We're applying for permits and licenses and things like that. It is a quagmire unless you
Sure.
have those boots on the ground, those experts. And I have built a team over 4 or 5 years for Brascan Resources. And you look at lithium, okay, there's hard rock lithium. There's also lithium you can get from brines. There's all kinds of different stuff. But you know what? They always say, you know, the key, I think, is you want to find, like you said, critical minerals. That's just a hype word. Here's the thing. On my website, there is an 80-page policy statement from the federal government that lays out from the whole cycle of what's going to happen. Basic greenfield exploration, brownfield, this, all the way to recycling. You can make a lot of money, but I know the whole process. There's a lot of places you can be. My background is the junior mining market, and we're there. And you know, if you hit it big. By the time you're recycling, you're looking at financials and numbers and crap like that.
Well, so the Canadian government just announced, didn't they, that they're going to start sinking a lot of cash into exactly what you're talking about.
Billions. And here's
then you add the fact that you're in Quebec, you know, they already throw a lot of cash at it.
Newfoundland.
And Newfoundland, which is hot right now.
But what I want to say, I don't think people realize how fundamentally our federal governments are supporting what I call battery metals. The U.S. is doing that as well, and U.S. and Canada are working together. We're getting billions from the Americans. You know, just recently Trudeau, you may like him or hate him, but he signed a deal with a company in Europe where they're subsidizing metals plant for actual developing the product, $13 billion. And the public likes the deal. Why? Because look, we got to establish manufacturing in our own country. It's called national security.
Right.
We got to start making the crap. We don't want to be, hewers of wood and drawers of water, as they said in the old days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, so, Canada has that reputation of sending resources away to get processed and then paying extra to bring it back. And
that's changing. We're developing a manufacturing, recycling business on a whole new proactive basis. Now, what people have to realize, resources are very important to save the planet. Okay, why? I'll tell you why. How do you create a lithium battery? You better have copper, you better have lithium, all that. Well, people don't understand that the opportunity isn't just buying the technology. The opportunity is behind all these batteries, all this technology, are all these resources in the ground. And that's what I'm focused on.
Look, so, I've always said there's no tree out there that wants to have uranium in its roots, right? Like just mining in and of itself doesn't hurt the environment. You're just extracting minerals. It's the way that you mine. And I know from talking to you that you give a shit about that, right? That just pulling shit out of the ground and leaving a big lunar apocalypse behind you isn't the thing.
No, and here's another reason we really got a lot of expertise. Dr. Bern Klein, he's taught probably hundreds of PhD and master students who are now in all areas of the mining geology world, working for big and small companies. And he has a lot of graduated with an expertise in ESG. And Bernie introduced me to people in Brazil, in Canada, that we're going to be using to develop our ESG strategy. And that's very important because we're looking to go to Europe as well. And the Nordic countries, they really care about that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And more Canadians are caring about it. If you look, Canadians were known to go down there and just rape and pillage. Okay, that's just a fact, right?
That's history.
Look what happened to residential schools here, right? It's all, oh yeah, listen, beer's not a carcinogen. Yeah. Okay, but anyways, the bottom line is ESG policy on our properties. It's going to develop and evolve. Okay, and we have some of the best people because of Dr. Bern Klein at UBC. He's our guy, right? And he's a friend of mine. You know, I know him very, very well. We play soccer together in Kitsilano, and he likes the odd beer. But here's the thing. That is so fundamentally important. It'd be stupid of me to find something, pollute the planet, and then say I'm saving the planet. I mean, how stupid is that? And you know what?
This is the going against conventional wisdom, right? Like the conventional wisdom was always just extract what you can as cheap as you can and move on. Now companies are understanding that, hey, if you want to be around for 25 years, either with the company you're with or the next guy that's going to go asking for a permit, you better have a good track record.
Yeah, you know what? You got to care about the indigenous communities. You got to care about the people. You can't just go in the community and start pulling and leave them alone. Those days are gone. Those days are gone, my friend.
So let me ask you one more thing now. I want to ask you about this Aggregates project, because this is a little bit more complex than I think a lot of people understand. Tell me how it came along. Tell me what you got and where you think it can go.
Well, you know, the Aggregates is very interesting. There's a company called Shoreline Aggregates. They're the largest aggregate business in Newfoundland. They have this Russo mine. What happened with them in 2016, they made a deal with this mining company that was mining gold, but they took all the gold out, but they left all this waste there. Ended up, the waste had value. It had aggregates. So the Bailey family that owns Shoreline Aggregates put that into production. 3 million tons go to the States all the time. The fact is, these aggregates are concrete stone. They're using cement to strengthen cement.
Sure.
You know how big that market is?
It's
massive. A $400 billion market, went up to 600 billion. And Americans like a close supply of that stuff. They don't want to go up to Greenland or Africa or whatever. So the point is, one of the members of the Bailey family I met through my work in Newfoundland, he starts telling me about aggregates in his family. And he started a company called North Atlantic Aggregates. And he needed someone, possibly a mentor. Well, he certainly needed someone who understands the stock market, right? Because you may be good at aggregates, but you might not be good at dealing with the crooks on Bay Street or, whatever, Wall Street, there's no crooks on House Street, right? Now, anyways, so the bottom line is this. We started working together. He put together 60,000 hectares. And part of that was a project in southern Newfoundland. And you need certain conditions to have a successful operation. One is you need a really quiet bay, because big 60-ton boats can't come in and be in a rocking all over the place.
Right.
So he's found this property, and they did testing on concrete stone. They've tested. They did backpack drilling. They did a bunch of work, which we helped finance because we got a 25% interest, which is a really cheap buy-in if this works out, I'm telling you. So the bottom line is this. They drill these holes and hit a lot of granite. Like there's, billions of tons of granite. But the key is you got to look at mica. You have to look at stuff to determine, is this the type of granite that the Americans will buy? Okay. And we've established that. Okay. Now, obviously, that's a big project. We're not spending any money on that right now because where we are, but that's an explosive project. Let me tell you this. Shoreline Aggregates has their own dock already. You can look it up, man. It's a big business. Okay.
And when you're dealing with aggregates, getting it out of there in a cheap capacity is the number one thing.
That's right. So look, here's the thing. It's capital intensive. So to actually build, the dock, the equipment, it's going to cost $30 million. You go, well, how's Balbir going to get $30 million? Real simple. I'm working with the Shoreline Aggregates family and a particular for Alex Bailey. And let me tell you this. They're dealing with Americans all the time that need aggregate supply, like 50 years of supply.
Right.
There's a company in Scotland. They're doing 10 million tons a year. And you know what the Americans pay? They pay $25 Canadian for this stuff. Okay. they sell it to people in construction for $60, $50, $60 US.
Right.
So there's Mexico just shut down its aggregates for America. So they've been scrambling, the Americans, you know, there's a bunch of
construction costs are booming.
Oh, yeah. And don't forget, there's that trillion dollar infrastructure project as well.
Right.
So I'm telling you, Chris, I'm telling you, Matt, I got the right people there, the right family. And you got, look, I went to Newfoundland, you know, I didn't know anybody. And, you know, they said, who the hell are you? Are you a Buddhist or something? You know, the bottom line is this, okay, is I met the right people. I have a lot of friends that are maritimers. And one guy, Dale, who's a good friend of mine, he says, they know each other. He says, to talk to my uncle. And he says, boy, you're in with those Bailey guys. They don't work with anybody. They're so successful. They're very careful. Now, I'm not saying I'm working with Shoreline Aggregates. I'm working with a family member. Yeah. But there's a connection there. And you know, it can proceed. And how to get that 30 million, my friend? You sign a forward contract for 50 years. They give you the 30 million because they're going to get cheap stuff. So, you know, we're going to have to do more work there to prove that up and all that. And that's going to cost a few millions of dollars. We don't have that right now, but we own 25% and NAI owns, you know, 75%, and we own it for life. Okay. So, so this is a very exciting project that really isn't happening right now, but it's there. And
at some point that's going to progress in a way that is meaningful and your buy-in is next to nothing.
Well, imagine in a few years, you know, we have success off one of our 5 projects. We really get going. We have some money to do some work there. And then we get to the stage where the Shoreline guys, the connections, can bring the big boys in, like Vulcan Materials, okay, to sign a they're already up there with Shoreline, okay? They're already up there. So the point is, we can do that. We have all the connections and all the people, and, you know, what are we lacking? We got to take this, you know, like every mining deal, you got to move it up step by step by step until the big boys want to come in.
Got it. So your risk on the downside is like that thing can sit vacant for a year or two, no problems. But once it starts moving, you're writing it.
We just got to pay the mineral costs to keep the claims.
Right.
You know, it's a huge opportunity.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If someone came along and said, "Hey, Bal, I got an oil and gas deal in Alberta. Are you interested in at least looking at it?" If they said, "Hey, I got a copper deal in Paraguay," is that something you're going to be like, "All right, let's go have a look"? Or is there a point where you're like, "No, I've got my bets on enough numbers right now"?
No, I'm very happy with the 5 or 6 that we have now. Okay. And not only that, I don't have an oil and gas expert. So why the hell would I look at oil and gas?
Good answer.
I mean, get real for a second, right? Like, I do have enough time to find the oil. No, I got the guys. I got the guys on the. I've got the top geologist. I got like Ken Johnson, 37 years, the largest diamond mine.
You're okay to go a little bit outside the lines, but you're not crazy.
No, like, why wouldn't you look at something? But I would let experts look at that. I don't have an oil and gas guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm probably not going to go there. I like to focus on battery metals, lithium. That's the future, my friend.
Yeah.
Even oil and gas is a fossil fuel, so I'm not interested. Okay, but here's the thing. You know, nothing wrong with gold. You know, let's look at it. I mean, you know, Bitcoin is liquid gold or whatever. You know, a younger generation believes that. Well, that's good. But gold has held its value for 4,000 years. And there's so much shit going on. If you don't believe, with all this inflation, all this uncertainty, in gold around 2,000, that it can break to new highs sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, I don't think you're thinking right. Even the big boys are putting a bit of money into gold. Okay, so with Brascan, with the gold spin out, you have this great opportunity, and I'm talking about multi-million ounce potential on that property. And My guy loves it, Dr. Klein. I'm dealing with great. We've gotten that. But the point is, it's going to go into, a company like Goldmark, and it's going to be on the board, the first quarter. So that takes care of that. So I can focus on these battery metals, the lithium and stuff like that. And you know what? There are companies that say they're lithium companies trading for 20, 30 million, and they're just garbage, my friend. They're just garbage. Okay. I just want to tell you, they're just garbage. Okay. And I can prove it to you because I'll tear it apart. I'll take a company and show it to you. We can actually do a little session on that, and I'll show you how crooked these guys are. Okay. So the bottom line is this. You know what? We might make it, we might not make it, but they were sure as hell working hard, and we're trying hard. We got 5 or 6 plays, 1 or 2. 1 just has to work out, my friend. 2 would be unbelievable. Like in life, they say, if you have 1 or 2 friends, you're doing well. But if you have 3 or 4, that's amazing. Okay. And that's the way I look at things, right?
Right. Well, man, I tell you, it's an interesting life that you lead. No one's going to accuse you of being buttoned down.
I love it.
Show me. It's a sunny day out there. It feels like you should be wearing sunglasses.
All right. Yeah, for sure. You know what?
If people spot you in the wild, they know exactly who you are with those things.
It's time to go to Kitsilano, which is just down there, and maybe have a pint of beer. You know what I mean?
I'm always down for that.
Maybe do a toke.
The shrooms are good this time of year.
Shrooms. I could use all that stuff, quite frankly.
You're right.
I could use it all. I could use ketamine, mushrooms. I don't do coke, but I like that soft stuff, right? And I really like beer.
Yeah.
Alcohol has been my life, but the younger generation, they're smart. They're puffing a lot because they don't want to have a hangover the next morning when they go to school.
It's smart stuff.
The new generation is the brightest generation we've ever had, my friend. I want to work with those people. I want to help them have their dreams, make their dreams come true. And one dream for sure is I got to get out of here. I got to get out of this rat race. And you know what? Why not throw a few $1,000 and it might make you 100? I mean, who knows? We don't know. But I'll tell you, I'm not in it. I'm not doing this to make a few $100,000. Okay. No. I've made money. I've lost money. This is a legacy piece for me. And I'm going to drive it. And what I'm going to do is add a lot of good people along the way. It's the team. It's the projects, the team first. So what you're also going to see that we're going to do is we're bringing in other people, new directors, new officers. One idea that we have is that we really want to get an exposure into Quebec because English Canadians don't understand Quebec and Quebecers. So we're bringing on bilingual teams. We're going to really focus on 9 million people that really don't understand English Canadian companies that have properties in Quebec. Sure. So there's a lot of different ways I'm looking at it creatively to create value for Brascan.
So basically, fuck conventional wisdom, fuck going straight up the middle. Let's put all our cards on, instead of red or black, let's get some numbers in there. And if we get a result, it's a big result.
Here's the deal. Invest in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe 6. And we work these, and the market will determine what has the value.
Right.
Okay. Because the market is the truth teller, right? Right now, they don't know the Brascan story, my friend. They don't know the story. And I'm telling you that this is going to happen. It's going to happen. And there's going to be a lot of value created in this company because it's been building for 1.5 years, 2 years, but it's getting stronger corporately.
I'll say one thing to you, man. Like, I don't know, you can never tell if it's going to happen or not, but here's my metric for success in junior mining. It's, are you giving it an actual solid shot? Because you know what? Sometimes you miss, and that's fine. But the guys that just go out there, raise a bit of money, go play golf at Hollyburn, come back, raise some more money. You know, the only risk of a drill ever poking a hole in their property is if one fell out of a passing plane. Those guys, you know, off to jail with them. The guys that will say, all right, I've got opportunities here and I'm not putting any of them down and I'm going to work them as best I can. And here I am. Come and have a beer with me. Ask me anything. I can get behind those guys.
Anytime, anything, anytime, 24/7. And Chris, I feel that we're kindred spirits, okay? And I just know it. And I think I've found someone now that really understands what I'm trying to do and what I'm about.
I just like anybody who's going to stand here and admit that, you know, hey, drugs are pretty good. Also, buy my mining stock. I think that's great.
Well, you know what?
The other guys will do the drugs without telling anybody.
Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing. Why is sin a crime? Let's think about it. Why is sin? Oh, you smoke a joint. You can't have sex. You can't do this. You can't do that. Well, you know what?
The bars all close at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. Yeah, they should be open 24/7.
Yeah.
Now, well, here's the thing: young people nowadays, they're not immoral or moral; they're amoral. Okay, in the sense that they'll try the gambling, they'll try this, they'll try that. They don't see this as a sin. Right. And we've been brought up in older generation. You know, the law is making us sinners. You know, they talk about temperance, for crying out loud. The fact is, I fit better in the newer generations. I finally have a community that I can love and embrace and help. You know what I mean? And mentor. That is my raison d'etre, actually. You know, that is why I'm still doing this. Okay, and I've helped young people get ahead. Okay, I can point out a few examples, but not today. They might get embarrassed. But what I'm trying to say is, and that's why the move into battery metals is so important for me, right? I was into the gold initially. Now we're going to get value out of gold, but the passion is for something that's going to make this a better planet. You know, even if you do a little thing, one thing, help one person, you're doing a lot, my friend.
Look, man, and being unique and not interchangeable with everybody else in the world, I can get behind. You know, this is started a professional wrestling company, for God's sake. You know, I understand the let's do something unpredictable that's a little bit fun, because you're a long time dead.
You got that right. You don't know when that time comes, but to live passionately and have your boots on the ground at all times, right? You know, I don't want to end up some old guy in a bar at 80 at the Red Lion, just sitting there drinking all day and night, and then eventually just disappears.
Right.
And, because we could be one of those, you know, but we choose not to be.
Let's leave it on that, man. Pleasure talking to you always.
But you know, Brascan Resources,
BRAS, the ticker symbol. It's trading at 4 cents now. You're doing a raise at 3.5, so that points to probably a nice, easy time of filling that raise.
The best is yet to come, my friend.
All right, man. Let's talk soon.
Thank you.
Balbir Johal of Brascan Resources and the best sunglasses on House Street. BRAS,
yes.
symbol, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Chris.